what we saw is that the volume of M&A that happened last year was actually 4x from a strategic perspective that anything that we saw the previous year. What it shows to the market is the ceiling is kind of being shattered. You can build businesses that are just massive. You can do things that we in the past thought are unimaginable, and cybersecurity companies should get acquired between $200 to $400 million, and that's the best you can do. Now we're seeing companies that really are paving the way to the next set of companies to go and build bigger and stronger.
Hi folks, James here, and welcome to the Spyro Circle, this time in collaboration with Forbes Israel. This week I spoke to Oren Younger, managing partner at Notable Capital. Oren spent the first part of his career as a CISO, working in startups and corporates, and then pivoted to becoming an investor, specifically in some AI and cyber companies, and definitely an impressive portfolio of companies that you've heard of. So I wanted to speak to him about what that journey looked like for him, from starting off in the army to then becoming a CISO in different kind of companies, and then taking a step back and investing in the next generation. We also speak about the strength of the Israeli cybersecurity system generally. Notable has a report that comes out every year highlighting some of the most promising companies. 14 out of 30, almost half, were Israeli. Some of them have even appeared on the show. So we speak about what it means to foster an ecosystem like Israel, startup nation, and why it becomes so successful in such specific areas. I hope you enjoy. Oren, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, James.
There are so many things I want to speak with you about today because I want to better understand your journey from someone kind of in the space and then developing into being an investor in the space. And then I also want to get your view on the ecosystem more generally in the cyberspace, especially the Israeli one, because it's one of the most exciting spaces in Startup Nation, and the imprint globally is extremely prominent. And we'll get into all of that in due course, no doubt. But I want to start, please, by basically giving the reader or listener or viewer, however they're choosing to consume this episode today, a bit about your story and how you went from CISO to investor. So why don't we kind of start at the best place, which is the beginning. And I'd love to hear your through line, please.
Awesome. Well, James, I'm excited. So let's go back to ancient history. I grew up in Israel. Although I live here in SF, I started my life in a small town called Hod HaSharon. And I was always curious. I love to understand how things work, from the networking component of my computer to how the falafel shop down the street makes money. And when I got to the military, I got in front of a lady who asked me what I like to do. And I asked her, I love to ask questions. I love to understand how things happen. And I have to have this hobby that is breaking into my friends' computers to see if I can do that. And she had a light bulb moment. She said, I know what I'm going to do with you. And so she tasked me, and I was stationed in the home front command. And my job was actually to prevent data leakage at the military in the home front command. And I got lucky because I got training and I got the opportunity to ask a bunch of questions. So I got involved in many different operations. Some are known, some are not known, but I had a blast in my military service, and I learned a lot. And after my military service, I was recruited to be a consultant in the security space, and then as an operator. And I became a CISO for a firm in Israel called IBI Investment House, which is a publicly traded company, and then for a startup called ClickTail, where I worked with many large enterprises to deal with their security concerns with our product serving as a SaaS, but also building our solution in a way that will be enterprise ready. And back in 2014, that was kind of a golden era of first adopting the cloud, dealing with concerns. We used Microsoft Azure. I'm not sure if they fully understood what they were building, but we were the ones who had to be the guinea pigs, and really had a great time in that journey. And I kept asking questions, not just how technology works, but how business is operating, how we as a business can do better. And after keep asking questions, I came to the realization that the best way to get answers would be through formal education. So I decided to pack up my suitcase, um, table my career progression, and cross the Atlantic to go to the US to get formal education. So during my MBA, the first thing you do when you get to school, they keep asking you, what do you want to do? And that was a question that I wanted to ask them. But lucky they positioned and they said, there's a great occupation, a venture capitalist that really kind of mimics and touches technology with business, which is exactly where I wanted to go. So I interviewed over 200 venture capitalists and decided this would be the next opportunity of my career progression. And at graduation, I joined GGB Capital, which is a global venture capital firm, which 2 years ago we rebranded as Notable Capital. And at Notable, we're still based in the US and invest in global entrepreneurs with global mindset. We manage about $5 billion today. We invest early, and we write checks from $5 million to $50 million, predominantly in areas that we define as cloud infrastructure and AI and prosumer and consumer. And you can think of the AI tailwinds as kind of the massive infrastructure changes happening in the world that is driving basically everything that we do today. But I'll stop here basically to connect the dots between, the young Oren that had a lot more hair in his head and just questions to what I do today here in San Francisco.
No, that was wonderful. Great. Thank you. The reason I made you suffer through that is because I wanted the people who are... I've spoken to people on this show before who are from a founder point of view, and I've spoken to people who are from an investor point of view, and I try to get as many different hats as possible. And what I find interesting about yours is that you go from the CISO to the investor. So talk me through how one prepared you for the other, or what maybe changes or attitude adoptions that you had to grapple with. Like, what did that look like for you entering into the VC space?
That's a good question. I think as a CISO, which is a tough job. I must say, anybody who's doing that and is doing it well, I have a lot of appreciation for the occupation. As a CISO, you need to look at a lot of knowns, and you need to make a decision of where to focus. As an investor, you look at a lot of unknowns, and you need to make a different decision that is more perhaps long term with the opportunity and where you want to partner. And so what I learned as a CISO is really how to make decisions and where to focus on. And that's what I do today as an investor. Together with the basic and again formal experience that I got as a CISO, I believe I understand the fundamentals. And if you look at technology cycles, they always repeat itself. The technology changes, but the problem stays the same. So a lot of issues that I dealt with in the on-prem data center world, cloud, are now coming back in AI, and we need to have understanding of what are the problems and also where it's going. And I believe that really was a great foundation for me to be an effective investor.
It's so interesting. I always, it's not something that I've had to really think about just yet, but I did used to kind of daydream or fantasize maybe about like entering into the VC space myself. Later on, it is a very attractive area when you come from a place with hands-on experience or industry knowledge. And in my past life, as you mentioned yours, in my past life, I interviewed all these different companies as part of my work, and then I figured like my nose for kind of like spotting a strong one out of a weak one became quite sensitive. So I always thought that maybe it would be a cool muscle to try and flex. And I guess you felt the same way about kind of identifying which company may hold a solution for something versus the team that you may identify with. It's an interesting change of helmet or change of hat.
100%. And I'm biased. I love this job. Every day is a new opportunity. Every week does not look the same. We have the opportunity of learning from people who really believers in fundamental changes in taking a big leap to changing how things operate today. And notable, we're really fortunate to back companies like Vercel and Fal and Jada and HashiCorp and Anthropic and Whisperflow, and these are companies that are really riding the wave, or really changing the foundations of how we think about different types of technologies. And you touched on it. Israel is a big part of what we do, and we love going to Israel. We've been going to Israel for 7 years now, and backing companies as early as inception, like Torque and Orca, Descope, Monte Carlo, Clover, Echo, and many others that really are in many ways are just incredible founders who are taking a lot of the know-how that they get from the military and implement it in a way that is capturing so much value in the domains that we're seeing today that are creating value for businesses. So we're really fortunate. I'm very fortunate to be in a position that I get to learn from people. I get to keep asking questions, and I get to influence and help founders as they're making big leaps of changes.
I feel the same way about. Well, I'm not investing in companies, but I feel the same way about hosting companies for conversations just like this one. When you walk away and you learn something each time from every conversation or every exchange, it's very attractive. It's very addictive as well. I want to stick on the topic that you just mentioned. It's a natural segue into the report that I received from you guys that I'm very happy to share with my audience. It's the Rising in Cyber 2026 list. And we can talk about maybe some of the things that you write in there and some of the points that you glean. But one I just wanted to highlight based on what you just said is that there are 30 spots that you mentioned for rising cyber companies, and 14 of them, so just under half, are Israeli. Right? That's pretty amazing. What explains that beyond what you just said of like the IDF or ACE200 or some of those kind of known areas? Like what I'm going to ask you for kind of more juice as to what kind of helped Israelis achieve such a standing there.
But I think that's a great question. But let me take a step back and kind of explain how we got to this list and the report that we're presenting in Rising Cyber, if that's okay. So in Notable, we do two things from an operation perspective extremely well to support our companies. The first one is a program that we call N1, which is a combination of operators that we have on staff that worked in companies like Meta and Uber and DoorDash, and they help founders from hiring their first sales rep and marketing leaders to workshop on positioning and also with business development, acquiring their first customers and partnerships, etc. And the second part of what we do is kind of leaning on the last piece that I mentioned, which is communities. How do we build networks around ourselves to really help us identify where the world is going, identify the best companies, as you pointed out to, and put us in the center of innovation. And one of those groups is a group called SVCI, which is a group of over 60 chief security officers that are operating today, that are dealing with the biggest and most critical challenges in the world. And they really are able to help us a glimpse of what questions to ask, what are the problems that people are seeing, and perhaps some of the companies that they're engaging with and are seeing great momentum in the market. And so what we decided to do is take that foundation and build a larger survey of where the market is and where it's going. And so we surveyed the market, and we got 150 responses from operating CISOs in the market. Some of them are SVCI, but most of them are not SVCI, that really help us understand what are the best companies in this operating system right now, and who they most trust to lead the way to where it's going. And we're able to identify, or we set up to identify, the 30 most innovative companies. As you pointed out, a good number of them are from Israel, which I guess is unsurprising to some, because we're seeing what's happening in the Israeli market from a perspective, especially. But really, those companies are coming out and are understanding what are the biggest problems to CISOs have and going to solve for them. We just saw a few days ago that Sayera just announced a huge round of financing, and Wiz got acquired by Google for $32 billion. Those are things that we haven't seen before, and really give you a glimpse of why the Israeli entrepreneur, one, set the vision, two, has the ability to execute and capture things that we just have not seen before. So it's unsurprising to me that great innovation is coming out of Israel. It is very impressive to see such a tiny country take such a big stage in the mindset of such an important ecosystem.
Yeah, wow, amazing. And for anyone watching this and is eager to get to know some of those companies, they've actually coincidentally appeared on this show. So you can direct them, I can direct you to some of the episodes: Terror Security with Shahar Peled and Oligo Security with Gal Elbaz. Are just two of the people on that list where you can watch interviews there. Sorry, that was a shameless plug for myself. You mentioned some of the M&A behavior with Wiz. I just want to highlight some other ones from last year as well. You've got the Wiz, obviously, for $32 billion, Palo Alto acquiring CyberArk, and ServiceNow buying Armis. So there were massive movements in the cyberspace in Israel. And what does that mean for the sector in terms of its health? Because I've been giving it quite a bit of thought on whether the sign of a healthy cyber ecosystem is that the big companies get acquired, or that other companies are kind of allowed to grow and flourish into big companies. So what would you say about the M&A behavior, and how does it represent its health?
Absolutely. So the survey that we put together was together with Morgan Stanley and the New York Stock Exchange. And we're able to capture all the M&A activity that happened. And in fact, what we saw is that the volume of M&A that happened last year was actually 4x from a strategic perspective that anything that we saw the previous year. And these three companies are obviously huge chunks of that $80+ billion of M&A volume. But what it shows to the market is the ceiling is kind of being shattered. You can build businesses that are just massive. You can do things that we in the past thought are unimaginable, and cybersecurity companies should get acquired between $200 to $400 million, and that's the best you can do. Now we're seeing companies that really are paving the way to the next set of companies to go and build bigger and stronger. And if you take a zoom out to what's happening in the world right now with the adoption of AI, and we see so much value is being created, you can really see that in the past, or in the wild past of 2025, we saw the big question was, can you build this agent, and can you do this action? And now the big question that we're seeing is that can you put in production? Can you scale that agent? Can you trust its operations? And security is just a huge part of this question that needs to be answered at enterprise scale. And so I think security companies today, not just the ones that you mentioned that have done extremely well, are answering those questions, and the ones to follow that eventually accompany every single technology shift that is happening in the market, and will continue to do so for as much as I can think of. In fact, if you listen to Satya Nadella, he talks about the convergence of engineering into 4 buckets, and just to be very concise, one of those 4 buckets that will be here, according to Satya, for a very long time, is the security engineering. So this is not going away. Doesn't matter with how AI is affecting our markets, what jobs AI potentially will threaten and maybe change. Security is here to stay, and I believe that CISOs will continue to buy tools. Founders will continue to innovate and create value in the market, and so we're going to continue seeing this momentum that is going to keep rising in the market.
Amazing. I completely agree, and I've done so much external research, outside of this conversation, just about the sheer kind of presence of agentic AI and also agents in the cyberspace. Because you have AI agents protecting against attacks that are caused by other AI agents, and so you're kind of having the situation of AI versus AI. When it comes to AI agents, the report that we've been discussing said that 71% of CISOs have AI agents in production. So that's a lot, 71%. But only 11% of them said they have the tooling to secure them. So that's a massive gap. And I think it's kind of quoted as being a dangerous gap. As an investor, what can you do to help close that? Or what should anyone do to close that?
Yeah, I think it's a great observation. Many folks asked me, they had questions. Said 70% have agents already running in production. To what capacity is that real? And others said like 11% have adequate controls to protect against these agents. That number seems way too high. So it's different ways to kind of take that piece of the market and the questions that we serve in, and we stitch them together. But I agree with you. That's definitely an interesting area to dive deeper into. And we're seeing new companies that are coming in and are asking the questions, or perhaps helping organizations ask the fundamental questions of how do you manage those agents? What do they do? Where do they have permissions into? Where do they live? Can I monitor their behavior? Can I log their operations? Can I put their traces in a way that they cannot delete it afterwards because they're smart? And these agents work consistently. So when Oren decides to leave the organization, Oren agents potentially will continue operating. Those are tough questions that security leaders and operators more generally need to ask today of how they're building their infrastructure for tomorrow. So what we're seeing with the survey is that agents are need to be able to scale and need to have great companies, and some of them have been featured in this in the report to solve those problems that I've identified, that I mentioned. But perhaps a more fundamental question is what do you do when your agent get breached? Can you have the ability to understand the blast radius? And really agents are becoming the weakest link inside organizations, because no longer I need to fish your credentials and get into your Salesforce. Perhaps I can get into an agent that have the ability to put information and observe information from your ServiceNow or your HubSpot, and then put in your Salesforce, and then go back to your Snowflake and come back to your internal operations. That becomes a pretty scary thought. But luckily, we're seeing new companies and great minds that are going after this problem, and so I think we're going to see a lot of innovation coming that direction.
Definitely. And it's so funny you mentioned like the ancient world of 2025, and then all the change that comes from that, because you're right. I mean, it's totally changes 100 miles a minute, right? I'm seeing things. I may get the specifics a bit wrong, but something that used to take, like an attack, a cyber attack that used to take 365 days to achieve, now takes 1 day. So the rate of the attacks are accelerating, and the time in which to do them is shrinking. So of course you need adequate AI capabilities to match that. At the risk of offending my own guest, which I hate to do, a lot of these problems are forward facing, and the current CISOs and current people are tackling issues that are on the horizon. So your thesis as a CISO, as an CISO to investor, it's from a previous era, right? Let's say before 2025. So how can you best close that gap in just the sheer industry change that you've seen during your timeline? And I hope that makes sense.
No, I think you're absolutely right. In our job, we need to kind of think about what's happened in the past and what they can teach us, what's happening in currently, and what do we predict is going to happen in the future. And the same way is, just to be completely honest, being too early is the same as being wrong. But you also pointed out that this landscape is changing 100 miles a minute, and you're not wrong about that. What is it? 2 months ago, Anthropic announced Mythos that it's coming, and it's the most advanced, comprehensive model that we've seen, and it's able to capture vulnerabilities, critical flaws in our infrastructure that have been living there for many years with very talented tools, infrastructure that have been looking for those, but have been unable to find them. And now you have this model that is coming in that is really changing the game. And so one, that is scary. And I think Anthropic were responsible by not releasing it to the public 2 months ago when they announced it, and they worked with several organizations to kind of deal with those vulnerabilities, understand the implications, patch those critical infrastructure pieces. But fast forward to today, we're 2 months into that, and Anthropic have released Mythos into the public domain. So I think that gap of what is today versus what is tomorrow is really shortening, and you need to make assumptions into where the market's going with some good understanding that this world is moving extremely fast and it's adopting. You can assume that we're dealing with Mythos or Fable 5, and we're going to see 6 and 7 in the near future. So really need to kind of understand, and it's a mind shift that we're having as an investor, but also the entire industry needs to adopt, whether you're in Silicon Valley or you are in the middle of America, that you're running a huge Fortune 500 company. You really need to understand what are the fundamental changes that are happening, and security is a part of it. It's a big part of it. We've seen the stock prices of Palo Alto Networks and CrowdStrike and Zscaler and others tank the minute that Anthropic came out and said, "Oh, we're launching Mythos," and then later, OpenAI came up with GPT 5.5. But we saw the stocks really tank in a single day just because the public market was scared that Anthropic and OpenAI are coming and becoming security companies. So those are fundamental changes that we need to understand and appreciate, and we really need to make sure that whatever company you're building, you need to be in the token path. You need to take leverage of the innovation and improvement that are happening with models, and the better company you can create with the improvement of the models, the better the outcome you can create. But the reverse is also true. So if your company can get disrupted by this innovation and the model improvement, then the road to becoming obsolete is very, very quick. So we keep telling our companies and companies we meet that they need to be on the right path of the innovation of the AI curve. There's immense opportunity out there, but also it's scary.
100%. I remember where I was exactly when DeepSeek was announced. I was actually at an AI conference, funnily enough, and everyone was checking their phones as they announced it, and the stock market, just like, I think Nvidia got like wiped out or something. There was something happened. I can't remember, but like there was like a very strong market reaction to that news, and then obviously it kind of all evened out. But you just reminded me of that time. And I want to highlight something that you said, because now we're on the topic of kind of AI. You have highlighted in the past that, or you've argued that Israel must act strategically to replicate the cyber success that it has in its AI space. So what do you think is missing in the AI space that Israel has that it could learn from the cyber space?
That's a great question, and it's funny, we wrote that piece. Wow, a little while ago. So thank you for digging this up, and I think it's quite interesting to see if it matches the reality. But what I really what we're really seeing is that the innovation is happening in a very condensed part of the universe right now. I'm not saying it's going to remain this way, but what's happening right now is the innovation is coming from a very small radius of a few miles here in San Francisco. The playbook for a very long time has been, we're very smart people, very capable, we're very energetic, all are true. We're going to reach out to people with problems, and we're going to connect the dots, and we're going to build something, then we're going to bring it to them, and then we're going to iterate. And that has worked tremendously well for many years. I think the playbook right now is changing, or must change. We tell all of our companies, you need to be here. You can have your operations and your R&D and your research back in Israel, and that's totally fine. Or in New York, by the way. We have many companies that are sharing the same values, or wherever you are, or in Europe. But the innovation is happening here. You need to be in the conversations with the researchers, with the operators, with the people that are changing the foundations, that the infrastructure that you're relying on. And you need to be here for those conversations. So that, I think, is the first point that is very important for Israeli founders to understand. You need to be here. That's no longer the question, oh, I'm going to move after I'm going to raise my seed and perhaps to New York because it's closer. No. You need to be here. You need to be close to the innovation. You need to ask the questions, and you need to be close to the people that are changing that. That's, to me, is very important shift that needs to happen in the entrepreneurial mindset in Israel. And some, by the way, some are doing it and are doing great job at it. The second part of this would be to really capture where the world is going. Not just ask the questions of the people with the problems today, but really trying to understand what are the labs are not going to do. Right? They're going to build a new infrastructure. That infrastructure needs to be secure, needs to be more efficient, needs to be distributed. You touched on NVIDIA, but there's other chip providers in the world. How can I take leverage of that hetero environment that is using chips from AMD and from Amazon and from Google and from NVIDIA? Can I connect the dots and be helpful to companies that are going to be building their own infrastructure and using DeepSeek and OpenAI at the same time? Those are questions that need to be figured out, and those are derivatives that are very, very important to understand where the world is going. And I think Israelis are really well equipped to be able to answer those questions and to innovate in the market. So I'm actually quite excited. We're coming to Israel on our third trip this year, and we're going to meet a lot of new founders that are building in these domains and going to make history.
Oh, nice, amazing! You can do a nice a meetup, right? You can bridge the communities that you've been fostering. That sounds super exciting. Who are you looking to meet? Are those early founders or later companies? Like, what are the things you look for when you come here?
So we love, as I mentioned, I love learning and asking questions, and this is our jobs as venture capitalist. And so you can meet and learn from a young founder, and you can learn from a successful entrepreneur. And luckily, we have some great founders and great companies that are happening in Israel. And to your point of having the meetup, we have actually put together a meetup for our founders here in San Francisco a little while ago, where we wanted them to meet our founders, Vercel, Fal, Browserbase. Those are great companies that are really leading the charge with regards to AI adoption and riding the curve. And we wanted our founders to understand how these founders are building, what questions they ask on their teams, how they're building their teams with regards to go-to-market and engineering and talent development, and how do you go about model improvements and doing evals. Those are really important questions for every company to ask today. And we are in a fortunate position to really bridge that gap and connect the dots between the different communities to enable those companies. And, we had founders coming in after that half-day workshop or session or meetup or whatever you want to call it. They came back and said, we decided to actually change our company, and we're gonna make a pretty hard pivot into what we've been focusing on for the last few years, into where we think the real opportunity lies. And that is fundamentally what we strive to do. Really put the mirror in different angles for our founders to be able to take advantage of what's happening in the rest of the world. And if we do our job right, we're able to build the next Anthropic, the next Vercel, the next HashiCorp, and we're very excited of the opportunity ahead.
Definitely, definitely. That sounds amazing. And I just want to highlight as we kind of prepare to close the conversation, I want to highlight some of the exits from your own portfolio in this recent cycle. So you had Gem Security acquired by Wiz, Streamlit by Snowflake, Voodoo by JFrog. I want to understand what give me a lesson or an insight that you got from those experiences, and did it teach you anything about when to time an exit or when to kind of hold on and delay? Like, talk to me about the end game there, because you find the companies that you invest in, and you do, and that's great, and then some of them are being acquired, or find new lives in different companies. So talk me through about that process, about when you think the company should or shouldn't enter that journey of its life.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm not sure if I have the best answer for you. We're very, fortunate to be backing great entrepreneurs who have been in a fortunate position to get acquisitions offers, and some of them have taken them, and some of them are still pursuing in their entrepreneur journey and going to continue to create value. Um, I think every successful entrepreneur will come to at least one M&A conversation that will come unprompted towards them. The question of if that is the journey they want to take, they want to leverage the distribution of a larger player to accomplish their goal, or they think they have the opportunity to build something massive on their own. That's a different answer, different question that's being asked for various founders. We are here to guide our founders and to help them make the decision that is best for them. We're not here to decide for them and tell them when is the right time to sell. We can help them assess what is happening in the market. Is the offer competitive? To ask tough questions of the people who want to acquire their business, and to see if that is able to accomplish what they are set up to do and decided to devote their lives towards. Again, being in a very fortunate position to work with entrepreneurs and founders who are very driven, and has the opportunity to build something massive no matter where they go. And so you highlighted a few, but others, we've been involved with HashiCorp since there were 5 people and helped drive that business towards IPO, and then eventually towards an acquisition through IBM. And that's the life cycle that the founders and the CEO of that business wanted to drive. And this is just one example. And another is Neon, which is a Postgres database company that got acquired by Databricks for $1 billion last year. And Azomi Networks, those are companies that were really backed in formation and have been on a journey. And each one of them had a different trajectory and a different moment in time where the acquisition offer arrived, and eventually got them to merge with the larger player. But we want to be great stewards to our capital for our LPs, but we want to serve the community of the founders that we decide to back and be on their side to this long journey that they have ahead. And it's a tough journey. Everybody talks about M&A and liquidity and those great opportunities, which are wonderful moments in time. But people tend to forget all the downturns and the difficult moments and the layoffs and the shrinking and the economy that is changing underneath us for many of the founders. So you really need to be resilient, and this is not for the faint of heart. And we want to be there for the founders for the great moments to advise them and to celebrate with them. But we want to be there for the founders for the low moments and to be the first call when they have a tough moment and a tough decision to make, or somebody that decided to quit their organization, or a difficult decision that they need to make otherwise. And this is the life that we chose, or the opportunity that we decided to set up to do. And we are grateful for this opportunity. And as I mentioned, to be in both markets, both here in the US and in Israel, and to partner with companies from really different formation stages to help them build iconic businesses.
Wow, amazing. Lovely final words, but I won't let you have that is your final comment. I'm afraid I do have one last question for you before we enter into a quick round where I'll shoot some questions to you. I do have one question for you, which is basically just a bit more general about the cybersecurity market. I've been noticing a lot of, and it's come up on this episode today, but a lot of consolidation and M&As and companies joining other companies. Let's say I hate to ask guests their predictions for the future, but what do you see the cybersecurity space looking like in let's say 3 years? Like, do you see it more consolidated, or do you see it becoming a bit more fragmented? Like, what do you think is going to happen there? Because it could be that, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. What are you sensing?
I think we're going to see both. I think the market keeps expanding. When we look at what we thought the market size would be this year, when we did this evaluation last year and we thought about what the value is going to be this year, we were wrong. The market expanded faster than we thought. And I think that's what is going to continue happening. So you're going to keep seeing CrowdStrike and Palo Alto Networks keep growing. And at the same time, you're going to keep seeing innovation of new companies that are solving difficult problems. Some of them are going to get acquired into the platforms, and some of them are going to break out. So I know it's not a definitive answer, and you were looking for something very specific, but I really do believe that we're going to keep seeing both. You're seeing great companies that are gaining momentum, but perhaps something that is interesting in that vein that is worth mentioning is that we're seeing the idea of buying versus building as kind of a new fundamental change in the landscape. In the past, security professionals were the best if they were able to identify a problem, buy a solution, and implement it the best inside the organization. About a year ago, we start seeing security leaders start building themselves, saying, I have those amazing tools like Claude and Codex, and I can build my own security tools based on the knowledge that I've acquired. This is true. The questions that we're starting to see today are fundamental with regards to not just can I build it, but can I maintain it? Can I really have the consistency in the context that is changing and really be a security provider myself? And so we're seeing the pendulum swinging kind of back on the other side. We don't know where the equilibrium is going to hit because we haven't seen a full cycle, but I believe that we're going to start seeing some platforms that are coming in saying, I'm going to build a very important foundation for you. And you, security leaders, security teams, you can build on top of it with an open platform that allows you to achieve your goals and be flexible enough for you to build your knowledge on top of it. And we're starting to see it with companies like Torque, which is a portfolio company of ours that is operating in the security operations space, that allowing their teams to build on top, and Token Security that is just released, Enzo, which is a platform to build on top of their agentic permissions solution. So really, that is allowing for a market expansion, that allowing companies to build faster and focus on their core competencies. And I truly believe that we're going to see both dimensions grow.
Wow, amazing! Yeah, the build versus buy idea is mentioned in the report, and you do draw attention to that dilemma. And it was new to me as a concept. It's one of those things that I hadn't heard of, I hadn't experienced, and then you start seeing it everywhere. So it's definitely a conversation that's taking place, and it's a really interesting one. And it's true what you said about why should I buy something if I can build it? But then once you build it, you got to maintain it. Your words exactly. Oren, we are approaching the end of our time, I'm afraid. This has been a great discussion, I think, on your background and your views on the sector and the industry, and some of the things to highlight there. I do want to end with a quick fire round. So I want to shoot you some questions, and I want you to answer them as quickly as possible. No thinking, just instant, whatever comes out first. And then I'll put you out your misery. No.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Let me see. What is the most overhyped word in cybersecurity right now?
Well, it's not fair, but agentic.
AI native security startup or an incumbent platform? Which is going to win?
I'm biased. Always a startup.
What's the one Israeli cyber company that didn't get acquired that should?
Aqua Security.
What's one thing that founders pitch you on that you've stopped believing?
They're going to become one platform to control everything.
Finally, Tel Aviv or San Francisco, where does the better startup energy come from?
Tel Aviv, always.
All right, Oren, I said that was my last question. I lied. I have one more. What is the best way for people to contact you or follow you or stay up to date with all the things you are notable and everything else?
Thanks for asking, James. We love to engage with the community, whether you're an operator or an investor or a startup founder or somebody thinking about becoming a founder one day. Please reach out to us. Our emails are easy, but getting in front of us would probably be the best way through the community and the people that we know and trust. So whether it's a founder or an investor that we work very closely with, whether it's a CISO or chief data officer that we know really well, ask them for an intro, and I'm sure you're going to find your way into myself or any of my partners that are able to or would love to respond and engage.
Oren, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was super interesting to hear your story and your insights, and I can't wait to see how it all goes from there.
Absolutely, James. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.